Thank you very much, Comrade Vikram Bharat. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel like Scrooge because I have to be limiting the time of these people for this very historic occasion. But I think you can appreciate that we need to do that. But we're doing wonderful for time at this function. Listening to the speakers, I realized there are probably two anniversaries that we're observing this year. Not just the 100th birth anniversary of Dr. Jagan, but the 75th anniversary of his return to Guyana, if my math is correct, coming back in 1943. If I'm correct, then so that's the 75th anniversary of his return. Before I introduce the next speaker, allow me to read a quote for you coming out from Dr. Jagan in the 1960s. And I quote, "The four cornerstones of our present needs, racial harmony, national unity, national independence, and peace and progress. Without racial harmony, there can be no national unity. And without racial unity, there can be no national independence. And without independence, there can be no progress." Ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to introduce to you the former Attorney General of Guyana, Mr. Anil Nandalal, who's currently a Member of Parliament for the PDP, to address us.
Comrade Sam, Joey, my colleagues from Parliament, Raymond, brothers and sisters, family of relatives of Dr. Jagan. It is indeed a very humbling experience for me to be afforded an opportunity to speak here this afternoon on Dr. Cheddi Jagan. The time is limited, as we all know. And I have not yet formalized my view. I think a person like Dr. Jagan, it takes a great number of years to assimilate his contribution, understand his philosophy before a proper assessment can be made of him. But what I am absolutely fascinated about Dr. Jagan, and I've always been since I was a child, is his ability to think. Many times the phrase, "a man is ahead of his time," is used to describe people. But I don't know another person who can be more accurately described using that phraseology. And any given aspect of Jagan's life, if you look at it, examine it under a microscope, you will realize that he was way ahead of his time. Understanding from where he came, the Logis of Port Morant, the parents who were indentured servants, uneducated, in a country where less than 1% at the time was literate, where less than the resources, 95% of the resources of the country were controlled by external forces. In that kind of society, this child, Cheddi Jagan, emerged. Came back at the tender age of 25. Yes, graduated out of the best dental school. Came back here, started his dentistry, and realized that he was not enjoying it. There was a greater craving. Started to do a whole set of other things, started to play bridge, etc. He was looking for an identity. He was restless. He joined the organizations at the time. I see C.R. Jacob III here. Joined the Manpower Citizen Association with Eden. Then didn't get any satisfaction there. They were not representing the people's interest. Moved on to the British Guyana East Indian Association. Realized there also there were hypocrisy. Nobody representing the people's interest. Where did this person, this young man, get this vision? Where did he get this agitation from? why was he so restless? He was married to a nurse, American. He was professionally trained in a society where I don't think it had more than possibly 10 dentists at the time, graduated from the best university. That meant nothing to him. Where did he get this drive from? He was inspired greatly by what was happening in India. At that time, there was a great movement for Indian independence, etc. He was inspired by Nehru, Gandhi. So much so the book that Comrade Janet Jagan went to jail for was the autobiography of Nehru, Fight for Freedom. That was found to be subversive material. But the question still remains, where did he get this vision from? And that's the question that I guess, I don't know, we will have to think long and hard before we can answer that. And when you examine any one of the statements, the statement referred to by Vikram Bharat when Dr. Jagan won the 92 elections, that was not the original coinage of that statement. That is exactly what he said in 1946. The people won. How could such a young man make such an appropriate statement? And any one of his statements, if you check it, many quotations were read here. Jagan was only in his 30s. And now, mature people who are in their 60s, 70s, 4 or 5 degrees, could not have made the quality of statements that he made off the cuff. And every aspect of Jagan's life, if you examine them, we were told that he embraced communism. But what type of communist he was? What type of communist he was? Jagan never advocated for a one-party state. Always advocated for the rule of law. Always advocated for democratic elections. Always saw a place for the private sector. In fact, there is no other time in this country that the private sector grew than under Chetty Jagan and under Chetty Jagan's government. Now we are speaking about hydropower. In the 57 government, Jagan secured a $22 million loan to build a hydropower plant in Malali in 1957. He had that vision since then. Now we are still trying to build a hydropower plant. Jagan saw agriculture as the basis of our economy since in the early 50s. And as soon as he was able to get into government, though limited government, Jagan started the Black Bush agriculture project, the Tapakuma agriculture project. It's Jagan who unleashed 90,000 acres of land at MME. MME people think it's a Burnham scheme. That's a Jagan scheme. And that is when, it's during that period, as Jagan was unfolding these schemes, that is when he gave birth to cooperativism in this country, to build cooperative societies so that people were so poor that they couldn't farm singularly. So he formed them, passed a law in this country, and formed them into cooperative societies so that together, as a groupie, they could cultivate land. And it is during that period that the Caribbean, through the Federation, saw Guyana as the food basket of the Caribbean, hence that terminology. Guyana can be the food basket of the Caribbean. It was Jagan's vision they were speaking about. At a time where you didn't have a university anywhere else in the British Empire other than in India, and India, of course, is the oldest colony of Britain, 300-400 years old. The British only came here in 1917, formally, constitutionally. Jagan saw the need and moved to establish a university. The first university to be built in the British Empire outside of India was built in Guyana. You had University of London branches in other territories, but not a creation of the colony. Jagan built the Guyana School of Agriculture at a time when they had no other institution like that in this part of the world. The Guyana Agricultural Research Institute at Monrepos was built during that period. The technical institutes of this country were built during that period. Jagan negotiated with the German Democratic Republic to bring a glass factory here, an oil brand factory here since in the 50s. In terms of industrialization, he built allocated land since 1957, under the 57 government, to build the Rheinveld industrial estate. That was the kind of vision that Jagan had. That is why Guyana was so far in front and ahead in the Caribbean. So, Cherry Jagan is an extraordinarily complex, extraordinarily brilliant man to examine his work in the time given to me by this forum. It's impossible. It's impossible. But just the other day, I came across a book written by an Indian professor, Amartya Sen. He wrote a book where he postulated a theory of making a connection between development, freedom and democracy. Freedom and development, sorry. I believe he got a Nobel Prize for that. Jagan was speaking about the connection between democracy and freedom and development in Guyana since 1968 when they rigged the first election. Since then he was speaking